आज तो नहीं होगा शायद। हाँ,
Welcome, sir. Am I audible, sir?
वेलकम, वेरी मच, वेरी मच।
Thank you, sir.
अच्छा, रिदम Rhythm has also joined.
हाँ सर, क्योंकि वो यूट्यूब पे है। पार्टिसिपेंट्स नाउ 190 पार्टिसिपेंट्स आर देयर।
190.
190 are there.
And you are in department.
Yes, I'm all alone from department because it's. I think we two are there in this team, na.
Right, right, right. No, I knew that is true. But this is comfortable actually.
Yes,
Joining
sir.
through phone is always comfortable.
So will you be able to see the chat in your phone?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Oh,
I'll be.
okay, fine, sir.
No, no,
That will
chat,
make,
chat, I don't know.
because
Chat, I
to
don't know. What I will do, I will join through this system also. Don't worry. I'll join
okay,
through this
because
system
I
also.
think students are going to write the question in that chat box, na.
Yes, yes. So I will join through this system also, so that chat box I will be able to see on the desktop.
Okay,
Okay.
fine, sir. Fine, fine.
Let me show you. See, I have this system also. है ना? In
हाँ
this
सर,
system, I will be joining, but the only thing is that camera is not there.
हाँ ओके फाइन सर, देन फोन इज यस, बढ़िया
हाँ
सर,
जी,
बहुत बढ़िया।
तो मैं वो कर लेता हूँ. जी. कुछ खाने का? दे दो चिप्स खाने का. ये ले लेता हूँ ना. आज और लेता हूँ. नहीं पीने तो है, बस यही ठीक है. नहीं ये ठीक है, बस टोटल बता देना आप. अब्राम सर कुछ लेंगे? चिप्स, बिस्किट. वाह, पुराना कुछ नहीं है. नो ड्यूज था, कोई ड्यू नहीं है पुराना. मैं लिखूंगा सर, वो आप मंडे को पढ़ेंगे. ठीक है. Are you going to give a report to father
विच रिपोर्ट सर?
about this seminar?
नहीं, रिपोर्ट आई सबमिट ओनली इन दैट ऑटोनॉमस सेल सर।
अच्छा, autonomous cell.
जी।
So you see, I have joined through uh, another system as well,
या यस सर।
है ना? And I am speaking from this personal Gmail account. This is phone,
या
right?
ओके सर।
And if I on the camera, you can see the camera also, है ना?
या फाइन
Like
सर।
this. And so here I can see the chat box.
ऑन योर डेस्कटॉप।
Uh,
Yes.
here, here on, I can see the chat box.
Okay. Yes, sir. Fine, sir.
Anything else?
No, sir.
So you will, madam, initial part you take care. है ना? I don't.
Yes, sir. I'm just going to take that introduction part, and
हाँ,
rest we both will manage all together.
okay, rest everything I will then see, oversee.
Yes. Yeah.
And try to finish with by 4:30.
By
Okay.
4:30. Yes, sir.
हाँ, हाँ. Don't extend much.
Yeah. Fine, sir.
हाँ, हमारे गेस्ट पे डिपेंड करता है वो, बट स्टिल हम लोग।
हाँ सर वो भी है.
हाँ, राइट। ओके, ओके। थैंक यू देन। अभी मैं फॉर द टाइम बीइंग आई एम पुटिंग ऑफ द कैमरा।
हाँ, fine, sir.
Welcome participants. Your host will be Dr. Vibha Rathod. Madam, you start as and when you feel appropriate, okay?
Welcome all the participants. We are waiting for our resource person. So we have to wait for little. And our webinar will start by 3:30.
Madam, can you start the recording? Should I start the recording?
Yes, sir, we can start the recording.
Okay.
Good afternoon. How are you? Everybody has gone in meeting. I think 1 hour.
How many participants are you expecting, madam?
Sir, I think around all are going to participate. So
Hmm.
let's wait. I have forwarded both the links, YouTube link also to them, those who are not able to join through Google Meet.
Okay, okay. YouTube is also, acha. Our
Yes, yes, YouTube
rhythm
is
sync.
also there. Yeah,
Okay.
Rhythm is there. So they will be joined through that link.
Ah, okay. So we can see it live streaming from the Rhythm channel.
Ah, yes, sir.
Okay. Every year on December 10th, we conduct some or the other program to celebrate World Human Rights Day, that somewhere can be added.
Students, it's a good opportunity for you all. As the resource person who is joining us, he's from National Law University, Bhopal. And you all are well aware about this university, I think. And he's a very renowned personality. So he's going to speak on the topic development and human rights. So whatever doubts he will be having, you can clear your doubts, but not in between. You can write your questions in the chat box, or after the session, you can ask, clear your doubts.
Yeah, but as soon as you have a doubt or a query, you can post the doubt or query on in the chat box. We will keep a tab on that, and we will include those questions after the end of the session. Welcome, Sangeeta madam. You are also there. I have a query.
Yes, sir.
The students belonging to all the departments or only humanities?
I have forwarded this message to forward it in all the sections, in all the departments. I think all the department students are joining this.
Okay.
The humanities students are more in number.
Mhm. Right, right, right. You want to you should we some play some video by the time for Human Rights Day or something?
Yes, sir, you can if you have.
Okay.
Because we are waiting for our resource person. He will be joining us soon.
Okay.
एकदम इजी था मॉम.
Hello, friends. I welcome you to Success CD's Education World Human Rights Day. Human Rights Day is celebrated annually across the world on December 10th. I would tell you why was the day first celebrated. Friends, it was to honor the United Nations General Assembly's adoption and proclamation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is the first global enunciation of human rights, and it was done on the 10th of December in the year 1948. The UN General Assembly adopted and proclaimed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights at the Palais des Chalets, Paris, France, on the December 10th, 1948. It is one of the first declarations after the atrocities which were committed in the World War II. Also, in the year 1950, the General Assembly passed the Resolution 423V, in which it invited all the nations and organizations of the world to adopt this day as a World Human Rights Day. It was first articulated in the year 1941 by the then President Franklin D. Roosevelt in his famous Four Freedoms speech, which was given to the US Congress. Here, in this speech, the President said that the four important freedoms for a person are the freedom of worship, the freedom of speech, the freedom from fear, and the freedom from want. And all these four freedoms are the main highlights of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is also known as UDHR, holds the world record of the most translated document in the world. On this day, high-level political conferences and meetings which have the common aim of human rights. Such meetings are held, and cultural events and exhibitions whose main purpose is to highlight the importance of human rights. Such events are also organized by non-government organizations and also government agencies. Friends, on this day, the United Nations Prize in the field of human rights is also given, And the Nobel Peace Prize is also distributed on this day. As per the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Louis Arbour, on the 10th of December 2006, that today poverty prevails as the gravest human rights challenge in the world. Combating poverty, deprivation, and exclusion is not a matter of charity, and it does not depend on how rich a country is. By tackling poverty as a matter of human rights obligation, the world will have a better chance of abolishing this scourge in our lifetime. Poverty eradication is an achievable goal. This is the human rights logo, which was unveiled in New York on the 23rd of September 2011. The slogan of the Human Rights Day in the year 2014 was, "Every day is Human Rights Day." Human Rights 365. And you can see this is the logo which was there for the year 2014. In this year, 2015, this is the logo for the World Human Rights Day. Our rights, our freedoms, always. Human Rights Day 2015. In the year 2015, the Human Rights Day will be celebrated as a year-long campaign, and the campaign will revolve around the theme of rights and freedoms. And it is to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the two covenants, the International Covenant on Economic,
Welcome, sir. Very good afternoon, sir. So, very good afternoon to one and all. The COVID-19 pandemic has hit societies at their core. All parts of our societies have been hurt socially, politically, economically, revealing new and exacerbating existing vulnerabilities that pose a serious threat of leaving even more people behind. As numerous countries around the globe have entered their third wave of the pandemic, it has become abundantly clear that once the crisis over, we simply cannot go back to how the world was before. From this shared tragedy comes an opportunity for humanity to build back better. We must put human rights at the heart of the recovery. The pandemic has reminded us all of a simple truth. A world that fully respects the human rights of all is a world better prepared to deal with and recover from all crises. As the 2020's theme for Human Rights Day is Recover Better, stand up for human rights. To recover better means strengthening our commitment to human rights and to achieving the goals set out in the Sustainable Development Agenda. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, strongly believes that working together we can recover better. With strong solidarity, we can build a world that is more resilient, sustainable, and just. So again, a very good afternoon to all. On behalf of the team Human Rights, the Bhopal School of Social Sciences welcomes you all. It's a pleasure to have you all here with us today. I want to welcome all the participants to this national webinar on development of human rights. I am Dr. Vibha Rathod, Assistant Professor, Department of Humanities, and thank you all for attending the session. Today, I'll have a facilitated session together with my colleague, Dr. Rutwik Gandhe. For today's webinar, we have fantastic speaker, Professor Tapan Mohanty, Dean, Department of Distance Education and Chairperson of Center for Socio-Legal Studies and Professor of Sociology of Law at National Law University, Bhopal. He did doctoral dissertation titled Culture, Development, and Entrepreneurship, a study of silk traders of Chanderi, explored the nuances of entrepreneurial dimensions of a traditional craft among the rural artisans of Madhya Pradesh. He had four major research projects to his credit on diverse issues like educational management, NUEPA, Bhopal gas tragedy, World Bank and MOEF, engendering criminal law, NCW, and implementation of PCPNDT Act, UNFPA. He has more than 60 research articles to his credit published in international and national referred journals. He is a recipient of Erasmus Mundus Fellowship from the European Union and worked on lifelong education. A widely traveled professional, he attended World Congress of Sociology at Durban in 2006 and the International Conference on Sociology of Law at Dharamshala in 2011. International Conference on Tribal Development at Rajiv Gandhi University, Arunachal Pradesh. He is the member of State Supervisory Board of Implementation of PCPNDT Act in Madhya Pradesh, a former member of Executive Committee of NLIU, Bhopal, and delivered convener's address at the annual conference of Indian Sociological Society. I am extremely honored and happy to have Professor Tapan Mohanty with us today. Very warm welcome, sir. Now, before hand over the mic to Professor Tapan Mohanty, I would like to inform the participants that we'll receive the questions at the last of the session, which will be taken care by Rutwik Gandhe, sir. To make your questions, please write them in the chat box, and you can also ask the questions by clicking on the hand option. Please, it's a request, keep your mics on mute. So over to you, Professor Tapan Mohanty. Welcome you, sir, again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rathod, for that nice, lengthy introductions, though I don't deserve many of the accolades. But yeah. And thank you, Dr. Gandhi, to be here. So let's begin, because when Dr. Rathod asked me that, sir, we are celebrating this International Human Rights Day at VSS College, and we threw a national webinar. And I was a little surprised, because a few months ago, because before the pandemic happened, I also happened to speak on human rights issues in your college. So I thought it is not a nice thing that the one speaker should go twice, because that, as economics say, now of marginal utility will diminish the returns. But nonetheless, with a lot of apprehension, I accepted our invitation, and because for two reasons: one, because of our personal equations, and because human rights is an issue that I cannot deny to speak about. Both are the theory and the praxis. In fact, we at our university also at 6 o'clock, we're also having a national webinar on human rights, jointly by us and Maharashtra National Law University. And a few hours ago, I was also online with the Madhya Pradesh Human Rights Commission's program on celebrating human rights. They celebrated human rights as the relationship between human rights and mother tongue. But nonetheless, these are all the entire world, because it's International Human Rights Day. So entire world is celebrating human rights. So it's a very apt occasion to discuss the issues, the themes, the perspectives, and the impact of human rights on the society at large. There are social, legal, political dimensions of human rights. So sometimes, as professors of law or working in law university, we only look at international human rights law or the legal dimension of it. But human rights began primarily not as a law, but it's began primarily as a question of rights, as a question of entitlement, as a social question. So therefore, we need to look at a more balanced, a all encompassing, comprehensive perspective, even develop human rights. And therefore, I said I will speak generally on human rights, particularly in the development, human rights and development, because the theme of development encompasses more dimensions of our problems, our perspectives, and our approach the world. So let's look at it from these points. And I will see the first and foremost because as the pandemic has happened, and we are all looking at the screen, we are trying to interact with each other, which ordinarily would have done physically, because it has come both as a shock, both as a surprise, and interestingly, it is also made all human beings bend down before the power of the nature, before the power of the God. Because because us humanity thought that we could conquer everything, we could do anything, and a small microcosm virus made us kneel down before it. So there are issues, and we'll come up again. But what is how do you prepare again? Do we discriminate again? That when government talking about vaccines, that we will do it only for one section, other section. Will it be available to everybody? Will it also discriminate between different sections? People that are economically, socially different, people those are uh, uh, politically connected, people those are medically uh, linked. So we think these are also discriminatory practices can happen. Whether the third world countries, whether the fourth world countries, the poor countries will have access to that. These are also inherent questions that will come across when you look at the right to health and the human rights. Because when you think of development, you look at all these concepts. Of course, as primarily, when you think of human rights, all of us know that in 10th December 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights came. And you would be also surprised to know that when you talk about human rights, many questions were asked, which is primarily called male rights and so. There is only one representative from India, this woman, who proudly said, no, we look at this as not a man woman, but as a human concept. So when you look at these human rights, declaring that our concept of human rights talk about all human beings. So Article 1 and Article 2, at least Article 1, all human rights are available to all humans simply because they're born as human. So it recognizes just human, which country you are born, when you are born, what your qualifications are, what your capabilities are, they're all immaterial. Simply being born as human, you inherently get those rights. And what are those rights then? Over the years, there have been efforts to concretize those rights, to examine those rights, to accelerate those processes. And then I was talking about there are two covenants. And even in human rights, there are also politics within it. So there are capitalist countries, there are communist countries, and both capitalists and communists have said, we will have different agendas for that. If you look at the ICCPR, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and ICACR, the International Covenants on Socio-Economic and Cultural Rights. So what differences they make? Socio-economic and cultural, civil political rights. So how do you enter civil and political rights? Can you exercise civil and political rights when there is no economic rights? When you are poor, when you are hungry, what type of civil and political rights are used? Will you use your political notions? Can you use political acumen when the first question before you use food, before you use hunger, before you use poverty? So there are debates about that. Of course, luckily, the era of Cold War is gone. So it is even there is a multilateral world system. There is much of abundance opportunity to come together holistically, decide what is good for the humanity and what approaches to be taken. But one thing I am sure, the approach that we take for the development of human rights, we talk about rights. Some people talk about duties. But why we're talking about rights? What the notion of right would make? As both as a sociologist, as a student of political science, as a student of law, now look at the question of rights. And as Amartya Sen said, it's an entitlement. You get it, you deserve it. And of course, a right also need to be taken. It is not to be kept. So when I say it's the right-based approach, it creates entitlement in you. It creates possibilities. And these possibilities which can be enforced upon, not merely given. So when I teach my students, say, look, I said these are fundamental rights and directive principle of state policy in the context of India. And I said, look, the directive principles are good, but we cannot exercise it because it is non-justiciable. Because when you look at it in context of fundamental rights, look, these are enforceable. So this enforcement of fundamental rights gives the precedence to that. So the moment you create a right, you create a whole amalgamation of it. And human beings, by recognition of notion of human rights, is nothing but a folder of such rights. And human rights is a catalog of rights, not a single right. So when I think of human right, it is not a single right. It's a catalog of rights, of socio, political, economic, cultural rights. And different dimensions, different locations, different ways people are used at it. But how do you locate the development? What are the notions of development? The idea of development, though might have come little bit early, but with the human rights notion of 1948, in 1950s, we find the development came to be center stage in economic and social writings. Because the devastation that caused by the World War II led many countries to rebuild and restructure. So how do you rebuild and restructure? The great problem of economic crisis of 1929 and then exacerbated by the World War had made people almost bankrupt. So they wanted money, they wanted growth, they wanted infrastructure. So how do you come together to all of them come together? So primarily, economists came out with the idea of development. They said this town, all things can be possible if you go for development. So then they wanted to what type, and therefore you will find interesting articles, on interesting books on development. In fact, our own initial planning, 1950s planning commission and ideas, Professor Dr. Sukumar Chakravartis was development planning. So look at how to plan for development and how you achieve development through planning. So our planning commissioner set up keeping in mind of the development. And so what is this development is all about? The idea of development was the idea of progress. Before that, there was social evolution, there are progress, there are growth. But then we fixed it with development. Why development? Because primarily again, development seen is means both a quantitative and a qualitative growth. It's not a mere growth. It's a quantitative, qualitative growth. And it is not undesirable growth, a desired growth development. And it means initially, as the economists perceived it. So they said, our growth means not growth in GDP, but even if GDP. So they wanted it is about investment, about saving, about increasing per capita income. That was the economics understanding of development. Then these things they achieved probably to increase our output. So how do you increase GDP? A country like India. So they wanted to increase GDP means increasing your agricultural outputs. So what type of how do you do agricultural outputs? Then emphasis on modernization of agriculture. And development came in terms of because most tracts of India, available land, are arable and non-arable lands. So you bring large tracts of land to the arable land, agricultural land, from farmlands, from the despot lands, from the in the lands, to bring them into cultivable land. So effort was to make cultivable land available. Secondly, many of India's dependence on agriculture also means dependence on monsoon. But again, an erratic monsoon things, how do you do that? How do you ensure that there are not only single crop in a year, but there are multiple crops available? For that, you need water. So for water, you need irrigation. And of course, we had problems of flood and famine together. So how to control that? So they came the idea of taming the rivers through dams. So big dams came, hydroelectric projects came. And that time it was Nehru who said dams are the temples of modern India. And 50 years down the line, we said dam the dams. We don't need any longer dams. So this development is the process. It came because at that point of time, that was the thinking that we are problematic. We are facing the problems of flood and famine. We wanted to put end to the both and also ensure agricultural productivity. So canal irrigation can possible by creating dams. And then of course they wanted big dams. Now also we need dams, but we need smaller dams. That time they approached building a big dams. So that was the approach development of economic development. Then development of infrastructure, transportation, transportation facilities, communication facilities. So keeping this in mind, the government of India, as I said, planning commission, they also established this education-wise, this IITs, because we need technocrats to build development, sustain development. So the efforts were done in that direction. And then they meant once this is 60, 70 phase, we are relatively better off. They said, how do you manage development? So they opened, in terms of education sectors, our Indian Institute of Management, IIMs were set up that we need managers also. To manage, we need technocrats. So these are what is basically primarily come our initiative for development. But where do the humans come into this? But who development are for this? So our anthropologists, sociologists, we try to look at it, which development it is. And then there is also political development. And it is important to understand that mere economic growth is not sufficient to do that. Because economic growth may allow you to have a better purchasing power, to access to the market. But only so until you develop your human capabilities, the economics then have very little meaning. And you find, for example, there is look Saudi Arabia, the country, all each country, economically better off, technologically what they do produce, what type of managers they produce, what is the gender equations there, what are the medical facilities there, absolutely zero. But you have the economics, but you are enough money, use them in buying planes, use them in building skyscrapers, a luxury opulence life. But the questions of equality, the questions of liberty, the questions of eternity, the questions of freedom are absolutely zero. So that is why developmental needs or developmental designs, increasing infrastructure, increasing purchasing power capabilities, increasing on a per capita income, would have to come along with the goals of human rights, that is equality, liberty, freedom, and dignity. So unless we develop the equality paradigm of equality, freedom, development, dignity, then development would have no meaning. It will come like mere growth. You might have a big head, but very small, what disproportionate limbs, or big limbs but disproportionate head. So that sort of development is a maldevelopment, which actually lead to much later what is called as a displaced form of development, because our big dams, big industries were large scale displacement of people. It led to the exodus of people, marginalization of people. Some pockets, so what happened? We develop islands of excellence, but there is no equality. And of course, they are coupled with environmental issues. Because we are not concerned, we are only concerned with economic growth. We are not concerned with human rights goals. Much later in 90s, then UNDP started publishing human development reports, talk about. It's also important to understand not mere development, but human development. And they put gender into it, they put health into it, they put education into it. So fine, without health, without gender, without education, and equality in them, equity in them would mean no human rights, no development. Of course, in India, that is what the problem is with the world is. The 20% of people in the Northern America now and Europe, Western Europe, use 80% of world resources, and rest 80% is only 20. And the total wealth is with the 20% of people. 80% are paupers, impoverished. So how to look at these balances? Can you call it a development? Human rights intend to do that. That when I am thinking of going to market in a big mall, I am thinking with my child, he's asking me, and Papa, I don't want this small list shoe, Liberty shoes, I want a Nike one. And we're fighting on the whether to go for a Nike or Reebok or Adidas. And there are people who have no footwear at all. So what sort of development it is? Because if you are human, they're also human. So human rights calls about the sensitivity to generating that. And I wanted to say that when I think of development, I said when our parameters or indicators of development need to be recasted upon. Because we initially, it was saving, investment, GDP, infrastructure. Now look at social infrastructure, equity, equality, freedom, liberty, participation, transparency. So our indicators are different. It's not that government didn't send money. Millions of dollars were spent on education, on health infrastructure, but we did not find them in reality. Why? Because we had corruption, we had opaque business. So that opaqueness, that corruption, that conflict had led to our swindling of money, siphoning of money coffers, documented things. So human rights also talks about a non-corrupt world is human rights. Because even that's what is my right is about. Because what I am supposed to get, it has to get as my right. It is not somebody giving to gifting as a gift. So a transparent administration, a good governance is also our human rights. So it is in this context when I said I would look at development, I wanted to say in this that people like there is a very interesting work by Michael Todaro, economic and development, 70s work. Then Dudley Shears, pioneers of development. They are looking at development as something panacea. That is our world rebuilding will take place. You will have nice infrastructure, and they, of course, only in phase of capitalism. And the similar model differently was used by communist world also, because they then pockets of development were there. So the islands of development, pockets of development is good to see from outside, from distance. But when you think holistically, when it is comprehensively, when you look at systematically, these development paradigms do not work. So within the paradigm this came sustainable development. I don't want to get into discussion of sustainable development, that was different one on human rights perspective. But when coming back to this idea of our development in terms of equity, equality, liberty, and freedom as the fundamental virtues of human society, human life, and how do we guarantee those things to that? Many years ago, I was, how do I guarantee that saying such issues? How do we guarantee people this freedom? And governments have tried to do some extent, and one method is also by doing law, by making legislations. So I was talking about when you think of what is the civil rights, and your civil rights means that you're accessing the public road, you're accessing municipal rights, you're accessing the drinking water. They are civil rights. The political rights are the rights to participate politically, empowering, getting votes, being voted. It's political rights. Ensuring debates. It's a political rights. Your social rights, your economic rights are, entering a fair price of marketing, looking at the government rules, able to purchase things with money, they're economic, and empowered to economically buy and get things, the economic right. So we look at these are rights, but how, whether we have access to market, but whether I might have access to the market, but that doesn't mean do I have a power to purchase. Otherwise, we should become bystanders, just like shop. What is called window shopping. When it is come back, but it is not for you. Somebody said, this type of differences are there, and somebody has put this frequent situation very beautifully. He says, look, when I went to a shopping mall, I found a small a girl from Islam went to a shopping mall, to a cloth store, and he found the mannequins are beautifully dressed, and the Islam kids has no dress. She said, "You have the dress, but you have no soul. I have the soul, but I have no dress." That's sort of equality. That sort of concept is at the realization of it. Now, keeping in those minds, for instance, are the notions of equality, are the notions of development. Uh, this is what attempts the United Nations did, what attempts these Human Rights Councils did, organizations now. And first, look at on one parameter of it, education. Which we did. Then the developmental parameters moved primarily from infrastructure, capitalism, growth to the education. And it was believed education, if not a panacea, but certainly help, because there cannot be any development, because development means that is creating aspirations and goals among the people. Development means that making them capable. And how to become capable? Or what is called as capacity building. And that is why Michael Sarnia and other people keep on writing people's first approach. So people should be fast. That is why you become human resource development, not development, but human resources development. What is the point of having developing infrastructure but no human? So we need to develop our human being, our potentiality as human. Consider them as resources. In 60s and 50s, the problem was that population explosion, population bomb. Later, they considered no population are resources. It is not the excessive population problem. It is lack of lack of probity and fineness in the approach that has created an unequal world. So bring people together, make them fast, and understand that. Put them as first line and understand their problems, their dimensions, and invest in them. So again, similarly, economists of education started saying that the best way government can invest is invest in education. So investment of education came. Some countries did excelling well, some countries lag behind, some countries made. So our attempt to think of human rights, because that human rights can only be appreciated when people know what is right. Because otherwise, I said no, human rights are available for all. Our constitution guaranteed, enacted 50 years, 60 years ago, that everybody is equal. Our preamble says, we the people of India having solemnly declared to give ourselves this constitution, which asks guarantees us equality, liberty, freedom. But what are they? And now 70 years down the line, if you are it actually there would not have been so many cases. Every day you find newspapers. Find a newspaper, find out when Dalits are raped, girls are raped, kids are kidnapped. So what did you call there? And there are the beggars. So what are these equalities? If everybody is equal, what are they? And then of course there are people with means, but they don't know what is the right. Because why? Because we have not taken education to that doorsteps. And some society, some sections of our society have successfully debarred from entering the plank of education for a variety of reasons. Right? From variety of reasons. Earlier in classical, all when talking about human rights, two things that human rights, across the world we find similar. That is the fertility behavior of women, which is dominated by this that male system, male surrounding of them, and their education. Many countries successfully blocked women to entering both traditional and modern, entering into the bastion of education, because they believed if they're educated, if they are knowledgeable, then they would see through their games. So educating would mean that living away your leverage. So for many political, social, economic authors, or leaders, or organizations or structures, traditional patriarchal structures, successfully please one means or other to debar the entry of women, the girl children, Dalits into the education system. So it is in mind, that is why the government over this enactment of, in an Indian context, the enactment of free and compulsory education system, art, is a step in the right direction. Enabling children to read, to study, even though it is for primary education, for elementary education, but it's important that a door has been opened. But second part is that how successfully you are implementing it is that's development. Then I think our development is an investment in children. And majority problem in India And again, if the problem with the children education is what is called about the nutrition issues, they're malnourished children. And when children malnourished, the first priority is nourishment, and where education comes. So somebody thought is planned that no midday meal or what is called implementation, the this nourishment program. That is, if students come to the school or even early childhood care in Anganwadis, so to provide some nutritional food through government expenses, investment, so that they, because healthy minds with healthy education, healthy body. So some nutritional support scheme should be given that they can come to the school. So both way, they're coming to the school and also getting nutritional food. So a method was made, and it's also development because you cannot do more. But there could be, of course, faulty areas. There could be way siphoning of money. That corruption will always be there, and people will find mechanisms. It is our effort to find out, root out the corruption. We have created village level councils, village level organizations that look at these things, how things are getting done. If our village people are not concerned, if our rural people are not concerned, if our elders are not concerned that look, this is what is happening, then what you, I, and government can do? So it naturally strengthening them, and strengthening them in strengthening democracy, and strengthening democracy is strengthening human rights. So when I think of development, it's a continuous process. It is not haphazard, different, replaced. They are into the same orbit, they are in the same structure. So when I look at its idea of development, of education of children for the early childhood care, that is the development parameters. And therefore, of course, there are a lot of cases, case law, if and Supreme Court talk about from Mohanty and others, because earlier education was there, but it was in the directive principle of state policy. Article 45 and 46 talk about states shall endeavor to provide free and compulsory education to all children below 14 years of age. So you have made a constitutional commitment. And 50 years down the line, 60 years down the line, you had enough money to implement that. But it took a Supreme Court direction to do that. It took people filing cases with that. So therefore, you look at it, and it would not have possible unless people themselves are aware, yes, education is our right, and his right to education is a human right. So we have made it the fundamental rights, but essentially, it is a human right, that right to education. Because why do we need education? Why do we need development? Because when I look at it, I say the devil education, as Adi Shankaracharya would say, it is self-realization. Or Vivekananda would say it manifestation of perfection. So if there is perfection, it has to manifest it. And why do you need to manifest perfection? Because our development would say that it is a flowering of human potentiality. So this flowering of human potentiality is possible only when you have the liberty. If I am a singer, I'm stopped from singing. I'm a painter, I'm stopped from painting. Then even if I have an inner tendency to do that, but how do you flower my personality? So the idea for us is that in creating an enabling environment to where these are possible, the expressions are possible. And that requires the idiom of human rights, the idea of human rights, the benevolence of the process of human rights program, that bringing them together, enabling them, empowering them, making them participate, making them compete, and making them free. So that is what we talk about as a development. Then second, the development of education, and of course development of the gender. And this is again another important part, because though women across the world constitute now more than almost 50% of the population, but their participation rate in work, in economy, in management is negligible. In politics, negligible. So they also feel as a double jeopardy situation. A woman has to be a good professional means she has to work doubly than ordinary professional, because she has to prove herself as a home and prove herself as office and do that. So these are facilitating processes. But that is why when you look at this and the concept of rights of women, so it is in this context what they did. And the first the movement that is significant departure that United Nations did was organizing the conference called ICPD, International Conference on Population Development in Cairo. And it is significant that they did it in Cairo because this talks about rights of women over their bodies. It's also about the abortion, the right to abortion. and to enter the Catholic world and also the Muslim world was against abortion, against use of contraception and things. They said it is natural. And a woman has to suffer. Continuous childbearing process, lack of nutrition, and a tremendous impact on their health has need what is called as this maternal death is significant issue. So holding it in Cairo, which also have a center of Islamic learning, it was important that how United Nations takes seriously the debate and discussion and dialogue to create a fair world with emphasis on the rights of women. And next year, they took it to the Beijing, the World Conference for Women in Beijing. And Beijing is again significant because they said Beijing China has one child policy. They said no, every woman has its right over her body, deciding the time, number, and spacing of children. That is her right. So allowing those rights are significant to that. And having Beijing. Then we have 10 years International Conference on Sustainable Development Conference in Copenhagen, then Beijing plus 10. Okay, Beijing plus 10. So we are all continuous conference, continuous efforts were done to ensure that the human rights of women are taken care of. That is, they are become equal partners. So we should think if government and people are partners, so male and female are partners, all this can be possible only when we create an enabling environment. So focusing on human rights, because you cannot become partners if you are not equal. We cannot become partners if we don't have liberty to do so. Like I think about the Russian election. Think about the election in Pakistan. No, you have right to vote. We are voting, we are electing government, but it's a rigged government. Don't decide. So what it meant then? It means nothing. That you have no liberty, you have no freedom. So you have this liberty and freedom. But even if you have a liberty and freedom and equality, but you also know how to exercise them. And exercising them gives you the question of rights. So rights are those gentlemen, that's ability to exercise your choice. The ability to exercise your choice. You can make a choice by forced one. But my ability to make an unrestricted choice, a choice based upon what I understand is good, is what is called a right. And if you exercise that, then you are empowered to do that. And that's empowerment. Because most cases are not. We have little or very limited role to exercise a right, to understand them, to examine them, to realize them. And therefore, when I said I will speak on development and human rights, I intended to say that is, they are not uh, counterproductive forces, because there cannot be any access to human rights if there are no development. For example, that's what my next point was. I was thinking when we had the constitution and the framers of constitutions were all great people with more knowledge, intensity, faith, belief, capacity, and well-meaning. But they made it part 3 and part 4. And when they made it part 4, that is directive principle of state policy, what they regarded? That we are a newly independent nation. We do not have necessary economic, political, social means to make all the lofty goals that we have there in directive principle of state policy to practice. We don't have. So how will you do that? Without that. And that we don't have economic means. So okay, it is a direction for the state. The state should do that. But it is not a right for that. So that means, even irrespective of your best or well means, you cannot give a right. Like parents, many cases, they want their children to do well, study fast, excellent. But if they don't have a means, where will they go? So development with that context will provide you the necessary economic means, the necessary economic capabilities, enabling you to exercise your right, enabling you to exercise your right, and enabling you to exercise your rights. So that is what when we examine that, uh, points that even if your best intentions are there, if the possible things are there, you are not enabling them because you are restricted by your access to economic means. So development intended initially through economic means. One set of way opening developmental potentialities, development of entrepreneurship, which government is now trying through skill development, that we developing entrepreneurial capacity to people, so make them economically free, economically sound. So if you're economically sound, then your best interest you can look into for the other parts, and that would be happy development. And but your economic means not necessarily should restrict basic human rights. So that means you are poor, therefore you do not have the rights to equality, liberty, fraternity, liberty, freedom. It's a wrong argument. What is essential that yes, by facilitating your economic growth and providing these human rights, we are creating a better framework, a more development. So our developmental needs, our development indicators, our growth potentialities will always be there, but they would be stunted growth unless until they are accompanied by the larger goals of human rights. So the efforts, like said, and then of course, like with health. So if you look at education, if you look at gender, then the question of health. So other day I was talking about how economic itself is not enough of sufficient. And I am fond of giving this example because when I was carrying out a project from in FPA to look regarding the implementation of the PC and PNDT Act, which is called Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques, Sex Selection Prohibition Act 1994. The act was made, and initially, why the act was made? Because act was made, look, we are a society who are modernized, yet we have a traditional belief of son preference syndrome. I use modern techniques to know the fetus, though the sex of a fetus, and then eliminate or abort because knowing that she is a girl. And this abominable practice continued, and I've been continuing today, though there is a clampdown on that. So we created an act. The government created an act enabling us provisions that look, this sort of sex discrimination test must be banned. It must become one of illegal. So if you go to the weighted sonography centers, you will find the rate sex discrimination state is not done here. It is punishable offense. That's what we did. What did it? When who are doing that? When we made international large studies in India, you will find where the sex ratio are poor. The sex ratio is, for example, if we take Madhya Pradesh, it is not poor in Alidaspur, it is not poor in Dindori, it's not poor in uh, all the most other tribal districts. It's not poor in Mandla, but it is poor in, of course, Bhind, Morena were there, but of course it's poor in Bhopal, Indore, Ujjain, Gwalior. Similarly, nationally, look at, it is not bad in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, Himachal Pradesh, but it is worse sex ratio, child sex ratio worse in Delhi, Haryana, Maharashtra, Punjab, which are economically better off. And forget about economically better off. Even though they're economically better off, educationally good, sound. For example, in Delhi, South Delhi, it's a worse, which is a post locality. Many educated people live there, which is worse. So it means even if you have economic means or economically better off, you are not taking. Think about it, aborting a girl child just because she's a girl. What type of liberty are giving? What type of freedom are giving? But taking away, snuffing away that from the beginning itself, much before she can see the dawn of the world. So it means that economically you may be better off, but that would not necessarily mean that you will have just encompassing human rights concerns or humanitarian concerns. You don't have that. So that is why even if they're poor, tribals are poor, scheduled tribes, the scheduled caste are poor, but yet they are the better compassion toward girl children than we have. So it means though economic empowerment, economic growth necessary, but there must be a corresponding growth of humanitarian concern. There must be what Gautam Buddha used to call, there must be compassion in that. Gandhi used to call, there must be trusteeship in that. Gandhi's doctrine was also important when he said about trusteeship. He said these big industrialists should not consider them capitalists. They are not coming, accumulating the wealth. They are the trustee for others. So when the crisis comes, they must have to open their coffers to them. So in that sense, you must earn your wealth, but must also be detached from that, and must also attach to the problems of other people. So that sort of kindness, that sort of compassion is significant. So development, in a sense, I talk about, it's fine, but I'm looking at the health. So looking at health, the nutrition, the gender disparity, and of course, are we talking about a few years ago, 2 years ago with the other governments? So I was a party, in initial planning of developing, having a right to health in Madhya Pradesh. We're thinking of whether we could have a first state, in a sense, to have a real right to health act passed, guaranteeing a minimum health facility to all citizens of Madhya Pradesh. That was what I was thinking about. Because we think, and probably if we are able to do it that time, and then the deaths in corona cases could have been lesser. Because what happened? But then there are also conditions, there are also problems. Problems of funding resources. But I think resources is not a problem in India. If there is a mind, where there is a heart and mind is, that definitely is the way. Because if we can, government of India can spend a cover of 20 lakh thousand crores for COVID-19 pandemic to fight it, then I think we do not have necessarily a problem of funding. But what we are actually looking at, both a enabling needs for the government to go with these things, and of course, and our lack of demand for that. I think the best possible solution development model would be like, we are creating, and in one planning, 5 years, if a political party, the government decides that we would have, there are many centers. So everybody child from Dhagwa comes to Bhopal for treatment. I said no. Every government, who is a government, and said no. A child from Dhagwa did not come to Bhopal for treatment. And every single children's specialty hospital will have in every district headquarters, and we will have in at least Sambhag. In Madhya Pradesh, we have 7 centers, Sambhags. So in 7, there will be multi-facility children hospital in 7 areas, so that the child, if it suffers, they don't have to come to Bhopal. And we might invest 1,000 crore for that. Let's see what will happen. We are simultaneously taking, and if children are happy, parents are happy. If children are educated, well left, and then do well, then our future is happier. So therefore, understanding these dimensions, of course, there is a lack of political will, you can say, developmental design for the sake. And I think any government does that, it doesn't need to go for voting. If their parents' children are safe, I don't think whatever parent political party may be, will definitely see the government who has done this. So there could be, and I am very sensitive on this part, because every parent is very sensitive for the children. And when you think of development, I think of development children. I don't think our development is over. We will ensure our development, and what is left is a decay. But the development of children is significant, and if the children, we can develop our children, use an infrastructure, and ensure their right to life, a fundamental human right to life. And I think that guaranteeing their right to sleep, ensuring them a better living condition, and providing an enabling environment of freedom, truth, liberty, and access to the world around them, and with a free and fair manner, would be the best way to think about that. And it will best tribute anybody can do to the International Human Rights Day. And that's what I was thinking, and that's what my thoughts are. I think I have not overshot my time, but ordinarily, as a professor, I have a tendency of taking 1 hour class. I'm not ordinary other professor who don't like classes. I like my classes. So I take, it's a full time, 1 hour. So I think 10 minutes to 9 minutes are left, so we can have a discussion. Maybe we can extend that discussion, but that's it. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this small talk that I had. Thank you. Now your questions.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for this enlightening session. I think students, they really learned a lot. And even I also learned so many things which I was actually not knowing. So thank you so much, sir, for your session. Now I'm inviting Dr. Rutwik Gandhe for a vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Before the vote of thanks, let me take this opportunity to ask a few questions because I think I don't think that such a good opportunity comes so frequently and so often. So we should utilize the presence of Sir to the fullest. Sir, there are a few queries from students. Let me ask them on behalf of them to you. Some of the students have raised the questions regarding the Prime Minister recently laying the foundation stone of the Parliament, which is approximately around 900 crore. The estimating cost of that, and then they are also saying that there are so many schemes and programs where the money allocation is not up to the mark. So, can this problem be addressed through human rights? I mean, in the sense, can there be some public interest, sort of a litigation, or can human rights issue somewhere be we can see a role to play for how can we really raise the issue of public funding in that aspect? So, any comment or observation from you with this regard?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gandhi, for that. Yes, in fact, it has gone back to the gone Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has already stated in his order the state further construction and development on that till they have
Mm,
made dispose of the petition. I think it was not a now they had planning probably from 2013 when you had the parliament attack. They wanted
yeah.
that to decongest parliament, and of course
Mm,
the parliament is our own representatives. But yes, we need to look at whether that sort of money at this point of time when fighting pandemic is justifiable or not. But
mhm.
in that sense, I wholeheartedly support that yes, it is not a time to have a dazzling foundation stone for the parliament. That money could be actually used for the saving people's life than for the parliament. So
Yeah.
that's what my personal opinion is that, and it's a human right because what is important is that the parliament is development, but development aspect you need to know right to life or what is called living is better than the standard of living. So first, let's look at the living for us, and then we look at standard
Right.
of living. Yeah.
Right. Right. And sir, a few questions from some other sources have also come. They are simply curious to know that what do you think of the status of human rights in the Western countries, that is the so-called first world countries? Are they kind of all perfect like Scandinavian countries, or so? How would you compare the status of human rights in India to that of the status of human rights in the first world? So
Yes.
your comments on that?
Okay, thank you very much because you said this. I would say I spent almost 2 years in Scandinavian countries. I was in Copenhagen, and I
Mm,
visited all of that stuff, the nearby countries of. So I
right.
think yes, if you compare the question of standard or no, this standard of human rights, they
Mm,
are much better in Scandinavian countries than other countries, but it is not all perfect because when you say perfection is something to be always continue to be achieved. But yes,
mm,
they are very careful about the children because about the older also. But what I found, there is a free education system, no,
mm,
because children, and once children, even a pregnant woman enters the hospital, it's a free. But what is happening now? There are also congested hospitals now. So
mm,
if there is small, because it's all now the communities, and if a community there are 20 pregnant women and there are 10 seats or 12 seats, then you have to wait. For many times, that is why it's a free in service also.
mm,
You have to take 3 months, no time sometimes, like line of for appointment, and that is why
mm.
those people who have more money and they're coming to place like India to get that treatment done, even though it's free. So nothing is perfect for the sake, but yes, then America and England, and I think in Scandinavian countries, all Europe. So it is still much better, primarily because there is a low population, there is a highly better economic condition, and that has made it possible. But that is also not so if you take into account of Finland. because
Mm.
Finland is also a lot of economic crisis, even it's not in a country, but it has its own problems. So I would say nothing is perfect, but they are moving towards perfection, and we are beginning at that. So, yeah.
One question I cannot resist myself but to ask is that being a National Law Institute University professor, how would you see the role of judiciary towards strengthening the human rights in India?
I think thank you
Very
very much.
briefly.
That's a very nice question to say, because I think among all the institutions today, what we
Mm,
have in a democratic country, and a lot of people have more faith in judiciary. And judiciary has gone to a human service, especially from 60s and 70s, when there was people like Justice Bhagwati, Krishna Iyer, in a sense, though they were slightly motivated by the Marxist ideology. But
mm,
since then, the courts have taken important steps in ensuring human rights. Only two cases I can say. In case of Arnab Goswami, and they
mm,
also Supreme Court went down against procedures, saying that no, this man must be given his freedom. Even the judge
mm,
said, Wellington Nariman, I don't see your channel, but I say your
mm.
right to be freed. And second question,
Yeah,
even Gautam Navalaka,
definitely.
this
Yeah.
Gautam Navalaka who is in jail, he has
Uh,
lost his specs, and without his specs,
Facts.
he is now nearly blind. And then court said, no, it is the your right to life is first than what is the constitution.
Mm,
So some
mm,
of they intervene, some they have not been able to intervene, and some of
mm,
they intervene very well. So whatever lately we
mm.
can find a human rights consciousness growing, and of course they are in position to do so. If I and we want, we cannot do. We have very limited access. At least they have been doing, and they have done so. But we can also expect more from them as well. But I think
No,
they
sir.
have played a constructive role.
Of course, of course. Very rightly said, sir. And even I think so that you know better that this Arnab Goswami case will for the years to come, it will be discussed in the academic fraternities of the law, particularly. So that is really true. Sir, with these words, with this, we really students end up our session here, and with this, I really take this opportunity to sincerely extend our word of thanks to Tapan Mohanty sir, Professor Tapan Mohanty sir, for your time, and at such a short notice you made yourself available. That is so kind of you for us. And on behalf of the entire management of the BSS College, on behalf of the principal, Dr. Father John PJ, Vice Principal, Sister Sonia, I take this opportunity to extend a word of gratitude to you. And from our Committee of Observation of Human Rights Day, also, I sincerely express the gratitude, the sense of gratitude to you, sir. And we hope that in the months to come, in the years to come, we shall together do many more such programs. And I hope that we can, take your guidance and take your, providence for our benefit in the future also. So thank you very much for making yourself available.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
sir.
Fraser. I didn't tell Dr. Rathod, because when she called, I was in Mumbai. I was supposed to plan to come to Bhopal on Friday. I preponed my journey. I came yesterday to that to be here today. So of course I won't.
For
Don't worry. I won't charge my airfare, but I have to do it because you have said so.
no,
Thank
no,
you.
no. For
Very
all those, we understand, sir. For all those little efforts that our heart goes out and really say thanks a lot to you, sir. No doubt
thank
about it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, all the participants. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Rutwik, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thanks a lot.
I leave now.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Okay, students. So, madam will be posting the link on the chat box. Please fill out that so that you can obtain your certificate and please give the feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So, ma'am, shall I sign out?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
So, students, kindly have you all filled the feedback link? Two links I have shared with you. One is for your attendance, and another one is for the feedback. Kindly fill both the links, and another link that is for your certificate generation that you will get on your email ID. So, students, those who have attended, they will only get the certificate. So, you will get that link on your email ID. Fine. So, thank you very much. Thank you all the participants for joining this session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome, Vijay.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Filled the feedback form and attendance form.